It was one of those moments that shouldn't mean anything, just a flicker in a normal day. But somehow it split everything wide open. I was standing by the kitchen counter helping Emery look for a receipt she swore she needed to expense her gas from the weekend trip. She dumped the contents of her purse out, sighing with exaggerated frustration, and wandered off to grab her laptop. I crouched to pick up a few things that had rolled beneath the bar stool: a tube of lip balm, a bobby pin, and a black plastic card holder with silver lettering. I turned it over and felt my stomach drop. Lumen Bay Sweets. I just stared at it for a second, trying to make it make sense. Maybe it was a gift card? Some branded membership thing? But no, it was a hotel key card. Standard size, slick texture. Familiar, but out of place. Like seeing sand in your winter boots. I flipped it over. On the back, written in pen in neat, loopy handwriting, was a date. Just a day ago. I turned it over again, studying the logo. Fresh. Nowhere. The kind of key you get at check-in, not one you've been carrying for weeks. I waited until she came back and held it up. Hey, I said. You go to Lumen Bay recently? She barely glanced at the card before shrugging and saying, oh, that's probably Maddie's. We must have switched card holders when we were at lunch. Her voice didn't crack. Her expression didn't twitch. She was way too quick with it, and somehow that was worse. Maddie's? I asked, more to buy time than anything else. Yeah, she went to Lumen last month for that design summit. Remember I told you? Maybe she left it in my car or something. Then she rolled her eyes and laughed, actually laughed. God, we're such a mess. Always losing stuff. Can you toss it? I didn't move. She walked over and took it from my hand herself, dropped it straight into the trash under the sink, and pivoted like it had never existed. Anyway, thermostat's acting up again. It was freezing upstairs when I woke up. And that was it. Topic closed. Case dismissed. But I couldn't unsee it. Couldn't unfeel the way her fingers didn't hesitate when they brushed mine to take the card. The way she changed the subject so easily, as if she hadn't just been caught with evidence of a double life. We live in Indianapolis. Lumen Bay is in North Carolina. I sat with that in my chest the rest of the day like a stone that wouldn't shift. She told me in detail that she was spending the weekend at a corporate retreat 2 hours away, near Bloomington. She mentioned the agenda, the catering, even joked about the dull team-building exercises. But unless she'd made a wrong turn and driven 600 miles out of state, something wasn't right. I didn't say anything else about it. Not that night, not the next morning. But once a seed of doubt takes root, it starts crawling its way through everything. Quiet, patient, like it knows you'll catch up eventually. And suddenly, all the little things from the past few weeks began to sharpen. The way she started putting her phone face down all the time, like she couldn't be bothered to look at it. The sudden urge to shower as soon as she got home, and I mean immediately, like she was scrubbing something off her skin she didn't want me to notice. The new long-run routine she started on Wednesday evenings, claiming she needed to decompress to clear her head. But she never came back sweaty. Her leggings still smelled like fabric softener. One night, she came home wearing a hoodie I hadn't seen before. She said she'd picked it up from the office lost and found because someone left the AC blasting in their break room. But it smelled like cologne. Not mine. Not anything I could even place. It was subtle, clean, and expensive. Not her usual brand. Then there was the phone call she missed last Thursday. I'd called just to check in, see if she wanted anything from the store. It rang once, then went to voicemail. No reply. She texted 2 hours later, sorry babe, in a meeting. All good, love you. No punctuation. No emoji. Cold. That night, she barely spoke. She picked at dinner, stared at the TV like it was a job, and went to bed early. When I walked in later to say goodnight, she pretended to be asleep. Even then, I told myself I was overthinking. That work stress could look like withdrawal. That the hoodie, the perfume, the phone, it could all be innocent. But then the keycard fell out of her bag like a breadcrumb. Not a smoking G***N, maybe, but a first clue. A crack in the wall. And once you see it, you start looking for more. Like how she suddenly started dressing up for coffee with coworkers even on Sundays. Or how she smiled a little too wide when she said she had to travel again next month. Or how she began asking me to feed the dog and handle the mail, things she used to enjoy doing herself. Like she was preloading me with tasks. Like she was preparing to disappear in pieces. The thing is, I didn't want to catch her. I didn't want to be that guy, the suspicious husband, the one scrolling through phone logs and second-guessing every word. But she made me feel like a stranger in my own house. I could hear it in the silence, see it in the way she barely looked me in the eye anymore. Her love didn't vanish. It just thinned out. Became less visible. Like ink washed in water. After the keycard, I waited for her to trip again. Not because I wanted proof, but because I already had suspicion. And when you live with suspicion long enough, it stops feeling like a question. It starts feeling like a truth you're just too tired to speak. That night, after she fell asleep, I took the card out of the trash. She hadn't even buried it. Just tossed it on top like it didn't matter. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at it under the harsh glow of the overhead light. That name, Lumen Bay Suites, stared back like a dare. I turned it over again, looked at the date. Not last month. Not last year. Yesterday. And with that, a new kind of silence settled in. Not just between us, but inside me. The kind of silence that grows roots. The kind that waits. I tried to shake it off. Tried to chalk it up to bad timing, a misunderstanding, anything that would keep me from stepping fully into the storm that keycard had stirred up inside me. But the problem with cracks is they never stay small. Once you notice one, you start seeing them everywhere, in the walls, in the floor, in the way someone you love looks at you and smiles like she's reading off a script. The more I tried to convince myself it was nothing, the more everything else started feeling like something. Take her phone, for example. Emery used to leave it lying around all the time. Half the time it was on 5%, screen up, unlocked. She'd hand it to me to check directions or scroll through photos without a second thought. But lately it was always face down. Always on silent. And locked tighter than Fort Knox. One night while we were watching TV, it buzzed just once and she flinched like it had burned her. Said it was work. Didn't even look. Another time she got up from dinner to take a call in the other room. When I passed by the hallway, I heard her voice drop, quiet but not angry. Soft. Almost careful. When I asked who it was, she smiled, said it was her sister, then added, she's going through some stuff. Thing is, her sister and I talk. We just texted that morning. She hadn't mentioned a thing. These weren't big, dramatic betrayals. Nothing explosive. Just little shifts. Things you could ignore if you wanted to. But when you love someone, you memorize their patterns, the way they breathe when they sleep, the jokes they laugh at, the rhythm of their texts. And when those patterns change, it's not random. It's a signal. Emery started showering the minute she got home. Every single day. Didn't matter if she'd been gone for 30 minutes or 3 hours. She'd walk through the door, kick off her shoes, and make a beeline for the upstairs bathroom. Sometimes she'd be in there for almost an hour. I'd hear the water shut off, then nothing. Just silence. Like she was standing there, alone in the steam, buying time. She also took up running. Or said she did. Bought new shoes, bright neon ones that she swore helped with her arches. Downloaded a running app. Talked about pacing and hydration like she'd been training for years. But the shoes stayed clean. Her app had 0 miles logged. Once she left for a run at 6:45 p.m. I watched her jog up the street through the blinds. She didn't come back until 9:30. She wasn't even sweating. I asked her once casually, how was the run? She paused, mid-sip of water, then smiled. Refreshing. I needed that. And maybe she did. But something about the way she said it felt edited. Like she was reading me a line she'd practiced in the mirror. I started to feel like I was living with someone who was constantly doing impressions of the woman I married. It's not like I didn't try to fix it. I made dinner more. Cleaned the house. Asked her if she wanted to go out, just the two of us, like we used to. She always had a reason to decline. Work deadline. Too tired. Can we do next week? But next week never came. And still, I wanted to believe it was just life. That this was just a hard stretch, a season we get through. Every relationship goes through lulls. I told myself we'd bounce back. Then came the night she told me she was helping her sister move. It was a Saturday. We had brunch plans with friends. She backed out last minute, saying her sister needed help packing. Said it would probably take most of the day. I believed her, even made her a to-go mug of coffee, kissed her on the forehead. But that night, after she got back, I saw her sister post vacation photos on Instagram. She was in Arizona. Cactus in the background, boyfriend by her side, timestamped from hours earlier. When I asked Emery about it the next day, she didn't miss a beat. Oh, she said, flipping through the laundry, I meant her storage unit. I helped her move stuff last week too, she probably scheduled the post. While she's out of town? She asked me to help before she left. It was last minute. She forgot to mention it. She looked right at me. No blush. No hesitation. Just the kind of smooth delivery that comes from practice. I let it go. Or pretended to. But that moment gutted something. The idea that she could lie so cleanly, so fluidly, like she didn't even have to think about it, that messed me up more than anything else. Not just the possibility of betrayal, but how easily it might be happening right in front of me. The house felt different after that. Not loud. Just vacant. We'd stopped arguing, which sounds like a good thing, except it wasn't. It was a ceasefire, not peace. Like we were both waiting for something neither of us wanted to name. She'd come home and ask about my day with the kids, but her voice was hollow. She'd smile, but her eyes would already be somewhere else. We still shared a bed, but the space between us stretched wider each night. She turned away before I even had the chance to reach for her. It wasn't just the lies that broke me. It was the performance. The way she carried on like nothing was wrong. Like we were fine. And the worst part? A part of me still hoped she was telling the truth. That I was just being paranoid. That she really did help her sister. That maybe I'd just forgotten how people drift sometimes and I was the one being too needy, too suspicious, too much. She accused me of that once, said I was being controlling. That I always had to check up on her. That I didn't give her room to breathe. She said it with such conviction I actually apologized. Spent the rest of the evening beating myself up, thinking maybe I had lost perspective. But now, with every piece of the puzzle falling into place, I realized how well she'd rehearsed that guilt flip. How good she was at turning questions into attacks. It wasn't just gaslighting. It was strategy. I started writing things down. Not to trap her, but to remind myself I wasn't crazy. Dates, comments, inconsistencies. Like a journal for my own sanity. She never saw it. I kept it tucked away in the Notes app on an old phone she thought I'd stopped using. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I wasn't ready for the world to know our cracks. I was still clinging to the version of us I wanted to believe in, the one where this was just a rough patch, where Emery was overwhelmed, not unfaithful. But late at night, lying awake next to someone who once felt like home, I started to admit what I hadn't said out loud. This wasn't a rough patch. This was erosion. Not a sudden break. A slow, deliberate wearing down of something I thought was solid. And now I could feel it, the hollow underneath our feet. All I needed was one more sign. One more truth she couldn't sidestep. Something undeniable. And deep down, I knew it was coming. I wasn't looking for proof that night. I was just trying to do something normal, something routine. Taxes. Of all things. Emery had scanned our W-2s to her cloud drive a few weeks ago, and I needed one of the PDFs to submit a child care reimbursement form. Simple. No hidden agenda. I even texted her to ask if she remembered which folder it was in, and she replied almost instantly, check personal/2023 docs. Should be there. And it was. Right there near the top. But so was another folder. One I hadn't seen before. Tucked just above our tax returns was a folder labeled Candid 23, lowercase, no caps, just quiet. Almost like it wanted to hide in plain sight. Curiosity got the better of me. I figured maybe it was vacation pictures or something for her design portfolio. Emery's always been into photography. There'd been times she disappeared for an hour just to catch the right light. I clicked it open, expecting to see sunsets or murals. The first few were just that cityscapes, food, sh*ts, a blurry image of an iced coffee next to a paperback novel. Nothing unusual. Nothing incriminating. Until I scrolled down. There she was. Emery. In a selfie on what looked like a rooftop patio, oversized sunglasses, cocktail in hand, sunlight flaring off the glass behind her. She looked radiant. Relaxed. And not at all like someone who had just spent 2 days at a corporate retreat near Bloomington, Indiana. I clicked the next one. This time she wasn't alone. She was sitting on a balcony, legs stretched across someone's lap, a man's. His face was turned partially away, but you could see enough. Dark beard, sunglasses, a smile creeping into the frame. His hand was resting on her thigh, fingers curved gently like they'd been there a while. Familiar. My eyes locked onto the towel draped over the chair next to them, navy blue, embroidered with the same silver Lumen Bay Suites logo as the keycard I'd pulled from her purse. For a moment I just sat there, hands frozen over the keyboard. I stared at the screen like it would change if I blinked enough times. Like it wasn't what it so clearly was. But the photo didn't fade. It was real. I clicked into the image details. The metadata was intact, no edits, no Photoshop trickery. Taken 2 nights ago at 7:46 p.m. Same window. She said she was attending a team dinner. The night she came home late, saying the meeting had run long and she dropped a coworker off on the way. I remembered that night too well now, the way her eyes didn't quite meet mine, how she went straight to the shower, how she claimed she was starving but barely touched the leftovers in the fridge. And now I had proof. Not suspicion. Not instinct. Proof. Not just of where she was, but who she was with. And what she hadn't told me. I sat back in my chair, breathing like I'd just come up from underwater. The room felt unfamiliar. Dim, quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful. My pulse was in my ears. This was the thing I'd been afraid to find. The thing I told myself maybe didn't exist. The moment the questions stopped mattering because the answer had already been given. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even close the laptop. I just sat there, stunned by the calm that settled over me, the kind that only comes when you realize something's beyond fixing. When the struggle ends not with a fight, but with surrender. It wasn't just the cheating that broke me. It was the confidence, the comfort, the way she looked in that photo like she belonged there, like she'd been there before, like she was home. And it hit me, this wasn't a one-time mistake. This was established. Routine. Practiced. I don't know how long I sat in that chair, staring at that image. Eventually I stood up, walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and drank it like it might change something. But nothing changed. The silence was still there. The ache didn't fade. I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to her in bed, wide awake, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing. Wondering if she dreamt of him. Wondering if she felt even a shred of guilt for the lie she was still living inside. She turned toward me once in her sleep, reaching out like she used to, her hand grazing mine under the blanket. I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just stared at the ceiling and waited for the sun to come up. The next morning she was cheerful. She made coffee. Asked if I wanted toast. Kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened. And I let her. I watched her butter her bread, flip through emails, hum to a song playing faintly from her phone. The same hands that had curled around someone else just nights ago now held a mug that said "World's Okayest Wife," which she'd bought herself as a joke 2 Christmases ago. If I hadn't seen the photo, I would have never known. That realization chilled me deeper than anything else, how easy it was for her to pretend. How *led she'd become at showing me only the surface while everything real happened somewhere I wasn't invited. I didn't bring it up. Not yet. I needed time to think. To plan. But the mask was off, at least for me. Every word she spoke now had a second echo. Every smile came with a shadow. Every detail felt curated, crafted for an audience she assumed was still asleep at the wheel. But I was wide awake now. And I saw her. Not the version she showed the world. The real her. The one who looked at another man like I used to dream she looked at me. The one who had learned to lie without blinking. I kept replaying the details. The curve of her legs across his lap. The casualness of it. The way his hand rested there like it had every right to. I wondered what his name was. What he did for a living. How long it had been going on. Had she met him during one of her conferences? Was he a colleague? A client? A stranger she bumped into on a flight and never looked back? I didn't know. And I didn't care. Because none of that changed the photo. None of that changed the towel. The timestamp. The way she looked unguarded. At peace. With someone who wasn't me. It was like watching my life from the outside, seeing the role I thought I played being filled by someone else while I was stuck reading old lines no one cared about anymore. I opened the photo one more time. Not to torture myself. But to remember. To etch it in my mind. Not as a wound. But as a turning point. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can deny it. Delay it. Numb yourself to it. But it doesn't go away. And now, the silence between us wasn't just absence, it was evidence. And I knew exactly what I had to do next. She came back 3 days later. Not from work. Not from errands. From wherever she really was. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. The answers were already in front of me, printed in high resolution and burned into my mind. It was a Tuesday afternoon. She walked in through the front door like nothing had changed, like she hadn't spent the last 72 hours wrapped in another life. Her laughter echoed in from the hallway before I even saw her, light and carefree, still mid-conversation on the phone. Not a single hitch in her voice. She was talking to someone, a coworker maybe, or one of her friends who thought "it's complicated" excused everything. Her tone was relaxed, flirtatious even, and she laughed like she was on a different planet, one where nothing had broken yet. I was sitting just off the hallway, tucked behind the corner near the coat rack where the wall bends into the stairwell. I didn't say a word. I just listened. Her heels clicked against the tile. Her bag thudded softly onto the bench. Her voice dropped to a whisper, "Anyway, I'll text you later, okay?" And then the call ended. She didn't ask where I was. She didn't call out, "Hey, babe," or check the living room like she used to. Instead, she headed to the kitchen, humming under her breath. I stepped out only after I heard the fridge open. She had her back to me, pouring something into a glass. Her hair was curled. Not in the lazy, up all morning kind of way, no, this was deliberate. Soft waves. Coral nail polish. A fresh tan. She looked rested. Like she'd been at a spa, not a work retreat. "Didn't expect you back today," I said quietly. She turned, startled, nearly dropping the glass. "Oh my God, Mark. You scared me." She recovered fast. Too fast. I thought you were still out with the boys, she added, voice carefully casual. I didn't answer. I just walked over to the table and sat down. On the surface, the table looked ordinary, a pair of sunglasses, a grocery list, one of the kids' drawings from last week. But I'd changed something. I'd left a stack of papers right in the center. She didn't notice it at first. She was too busy trying to read my face. Everything okay? She asked, like she hadn't just gone dark for 3 days. I nodded to the table. Why don't you take a look? She glanced down. That's when she saw it, the neatly printed pages. The receipts. The metadata printout from the photo. The minibar charge. A copy of the hotel booking confirmation. All of it there. All of it in order. At first, she didn't react. She flipped through them quickly, probably assuming it was work-related, maybe documents I needed her to sign or review. But then she slowed. Then she stopped. Her fingers hesitated on the photo, the one from the balcony. Her legs over his lap. His hand on her thigh. The towel. The timestamp. Silence. The kind that swells in your ears. Her breathing changed first. Subtle, shallow. She placed the photo down like it might explode if she held it too long. Mark, she began, her voice low, uncertain. But I raised my hand just slightly. Not to stop her from speaking, but to let her know I wasn't doing this like she expected. No raised voice. No demands. No begging for clarity I already had. This is everything, I said. Everything I found. Everything I know. She stood still, one hand braced on the counter, the other trembling slightly. Her eyes flicked between the pages and me as if trying to decide which version of reality she should commit to. The truth or the story she'd rehearsed. How long? I asked. She didn't answer. I didn't ask again. The truth was already on the table. Her silence only underlined it. She opened her mouth once, maybe to explain, maybe to lie, but then closed it again. And so we stood there. Her across the kitchen. Me in the chair. Nothing but the whir of the fridge and the tick of the wall clock between us. She finally sat down across from me. Still said nothing. I leaned back. You don't have to admit it, I said, staring at her. You already did. With every excuse. Every detail that didn't line up. Every lie you told while looking me in the eye. Her mouth quivered. I could see the tears welling, not spilling yet, just waiting for permission. You think I don't see it? I continued. How you started disappearing without ever leaving the room. How you rehearsed everything before you said it out loud. Mark, she started, voice cracking. I'm not asking for an apology, I said sharply. I'm not even asking for the truth anymore. I just wanted you to know I know. No more guessing. No more hoping I'm wrong. The weight of it hit her then. I saw it the exact moment she realized I wasn't going to fight. That I wasn't playing the role of the wounded husband begging to be chosen. I was done. And she didn't know what to do with that. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. I nodded slowly like I was agreeing with a weather report. I believe you. But you did. And that's the part that doesn't go away. She stared at the stack of evidence like it might rearrange itself. Like she could still talk her way out of it. I stood. I'm going to pack a few things, I said. Don't worry. I won't cause a scene. Her eyes widened. You're leaving. I looked at her, really looked. The face I used to wake up next to every morning. The smile I used to think of when work got hard or days got long. Now it was just a mask. Slipping at the edges. You already did, I said. And then I walked upstairs. I moved slowly, deliberately. Took only what I needed, my work laptop, a few changes of clothes, the kids' health records, my wallet. Nothing sentimental. Nothing to argue over. I slipped my wedding ring off and walked it back down into the kitchen. She was still sitting there, staring at the table, completely still. When I placed the ring in her half-finished coffee, she flinched. Don't worry, I said softly. It's not hot. And I walked out the door. No shouting. No slammed cabinets. No, how could you? Just the soft click of the door behind me. Final. Quiet. That was the moment she realized I wasn't coming back to plead. That I wasn't going to drag it all out until one of us collapsed under the weight of it. I had what I needed. And I was done. Packing didn't take long. When you're not packing your whole life, just the part of it that still belongs to you, it's amazing how fast it goes. I didn't rage through the closet, yanking things off hangers. I wasn't looking to make a statement or shatter dishes. That's not who I am. That's not who I wanted to be, even after everything. I moved through the room like someone stepping through a fire they'd already accepted would burn them. No panic. Just purpose. Just the silent, heavy sort of clarity that comes when love becomes evidence, and the evidence tells you to go. I took my laptop, charger, a few work files I couldn't lose, 3 shirts, a hoodie, 2 pairs of jeans, my sneakers, a duffel bag, my keys, my toothbrush, razor, phone charger, the kids' health insurance cards. Something told me I'd need those soon. And the ring. No, not to wear. I'd already left it behind in her coffee cup. A moment she hadn't expected, and one she still hadn't reacted to. But I found the original box, the one it came in years ago, still tucked in the top drawer where she'd kept our sentimental stuff. I picked it up, stared at it for a long second, then slid the empty velvet box into my bag. Not out of spite, just so it wasn't hers anymore. Somehow that felt important. When I came back downstairs, she hadn't moved much. She was sitting on the couch now, knees tucked under her, arms crossed tightly across her chest like she was bracing for a hurricane. But there was no storm. Not from me. I wasn't going to scream or make her admit it one more time. That's the thing about betrayal. Once it's out in the open, it doesn't need to be repeated. It just exists, breathing, waiting, feeding on the air you used to share. "I'll text you later," I said as I walked past her. My voice was steady, calm, the kind of tone you use when you're giving directions to someone who won't be in your life long enough to remember them. She didn't answer. She just blinked, like she wanted to say something but hadn't decided what version of herself to be yet. I opened the door, stopped, then turned back for just a second. "You don't need to explain," I said. "I've already lived it." And then I left. No slam, no raised voice, just the soft, final sound of a door that doesn't plan to open again. That was the moment she broke. I didn't see it, not fully, but I heard it. The breath hitch, the whisper of movement behind me, the sound of someone realizing the audience they'd been performing for had already left the theater. I stepped into the afternoon sun, duffel bag over my shoulder, and got into my car. The driveway looked the same, but I wasn't the same man who'd driven into it the last time. That man still believed in a version of her that didn't exist anymore. That man had stood in the kitchen, listening to excuses, watching her stir sugar into her coffee with the same hands that had held someone else's face a few nights earlier. That man had asked questions. I wasn't asking anymore. I didn't know where I was going. Not at first. I just drove. Past the grocery store where we used to shop on Sundays. Past the park where we'd taken the kids on summer afternoons. Past the school where we said we'd volunteer next semester. I kept driving until I reached a small roadside motel on the outskirts of town. Not glamorous. Not the kind of place you pick unless you need anonymity, silence, or both. I checked in with my ID, paid in cash, and asked for a room on the end, fewer neighbors. Once inside, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floral curtains and faded wallpaper. It wasn't home, but it was mine for now. I didn't cry. Not yet. I didn't rage. I didn't even replay it all. The photos, the lies, the 3 days of silence. I just sat there, stunned by the weight of peace that came with making the decision. You always think leaving will feel like failure, like giving up, but sometimes it feels like air. Like finally being able to breathe after holding your breath for months. I stayed in that room for the night, ordered cheap takeout, watched reruns of a sitcom I didn't care about. I didn't text anyone, didn't check social media. I needed space not just from her but from the noise. By morning I had a plan. I wasn't going to wait for her to get ahead of this. Not legally, not emotionally. I called a divorce attorney a friend had quietly recommended years ago when someone else's marriage blew up. Left a message. Got a call back before lunch. "We'll take care of you," the woman on the other end said. Her tone was kind, firm, not surprised. I gave her the basics, not the whole sob story, just the essentials. She asked for documentation and I already had it. Everything that mattered was in a folder I'd brought with me, the photos, the email receipts, the timestamps. A case built unintentionally but thoroughly. "I want this done clean," I told her. "Fast. No drama." "We can do that," she said. "Just be prepared. Sometimes the other side brings drama anyway." I almost laughed. She's had plenty of practice. Over the next few days, I started carving out my next reality. I stayed in that motel a little longer than I thought I would. Not because I didn't have other options, I could crash with my brother or even rent something short-term, but because I needed to be in a place where no one expected me to explain myself. Where the sheets were thin and the lights buzzed, and no part of it felt like memory. She texted once. Just a single line. "Where are you?" I didn't respond. What answer could I give her that wouldn't just become ammunition for the version of the story she'd eventually tell? That I'd left? That I'd gone cold? That I didn't even fight for us? No, let her write it how she wants. I knew the truth. I'd lived it. And I wasn't about to give her more material to twist. The day the papers were ready, I returned to the house. Not to talk, not to argue, but to drop them off. She was home. The kitchen looked untouched. Same flowers wilting in the vase. Same half-empty cereal box on the counter. Like time had paused since I left. She didn't hear me come in. I set the manila envelope on the dining room table, right next to the stack of bills she hadn't opened in 3 days. I stood there for a second, hands in my pockets, watching her from across the room. She was scrolling her phone, knees drawn up on the couch, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands like a kid trying to disappear. Then, without a word, I walked back out. This time, she followed. "Mark!" she called after me, stepping into the driveway barefoot. I stopped, turned just enough to look at her. Her eyes were wide, rimmed with sleep, or guilt, or maybe both. "I didn't think you'd actually leave," she said. That almost made me smile. "Neither did I," I replied. "But then again, I didn't think you'd actually lie." She stood there, arms crossed against the chill, watching me get back into the car. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just stood there, finally quiet. And I drove away, not out of spite, not to make a point, but because sometimes walking away is the point. Weeks later, we were sitting in court, on opposite sides of a long, polished bench, pretending we were still just people. Not former spouses. Not strangers wearing old skin. She'd lawyered up fast, of course. Filed a response to my petition that read like fiction. Claimed emotional abandonment. Said we *p*nized silence. That I was disengaged, hostile, neglectful. The irony almost made me laugh. That the woman who vanished into someone else's arms would accuse me of disappearing. But facts are stubborn things. I had the photos, the travel records, the emails, the keycard, her signature on the hotel booking, her silence when confronted. I presented them like someone who no longer needed anything from her, not even a confession. The judge was quiet the whole time, professional, detached. He didn't look at us like a couple in crisis, just 2 names in a stack of filings. When it was done, he granted full custody of the kids to me. Supervised visits for her. No overnights. Emery blinked like she hadn't heard him right. Like this wasn't real. She turned to her lawyer, then to me, and for the first time in months, I saw panic that wasn't rehearsed. I walked out holding Jackson's hand, calm, solid. She didn't follow. Later that night, she texted me, "You made me the villain." I read it twice, didn't respond, because ghosts don't get replies. And I was done writing back to someone who let herself vanish. 3 years passed. 3 long, healing, brutal, beautiful years. The house got quieter, then warmer. The kids got older. I got better. I learned to sleep again without flinching when the door creaked. I stopped waiting for apologies that weren't coming. I didn't date right away. Not seriously. I needed to relearn what trust felt like, what peace sounded like. Then, one spring afternoon, Jackson's school hosted a charity event. Outdoor booths, speeches, a small crowd of parents and faculty. They asked me to say a few words, something about resilience, community, rebuilding. I spoke honestly. Nothing dramatic. Just what I knew now, that broken things can still have shape. That healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means moving anyway. Afterward, as people mingled and thanked me, I spotted her. Emery. Standing near the exit, surrounded by people who didn't know her story. Coral polish. Sunglasses in her hand. She looked the same and nothing like the woman I remembered. Our eyes met across the lawn. She froze. Her lips parted like she was going to call out. But no sound came. Instead, she lowered her gaze. Slowly. Not ashamed, not exactly. Just small. And in that second, I saw it land on her. The full weight of what she'd lost. She hadn't just betrayed the man I was. She had erased the life we could have had. And all I had to do was keep walking. So I did. Jackson caught up beside me, full of life and questions, and I didn't look back. Because some people are chapters. And some are warnings. And Emery? She was a closed book. A quiet one. With nothing left to say.